Artificial intelligence cannot produce art. It can make a simulacra of art, an approximation of it, but it cannot create art. Climbing Mount Everest, I'm sure, is not an easy feat. There is a deadly lack of oxygen near the summit. The temperature is low enough to freeze to death, sometimes within minutes, and a fall of even 1% of its height would end a life. People have died on this mountain, so many that the bodies of the deceased are used as guide markers. Others have ascended to the summit and left their flags there, in a pile with dozens more flags frozen to the ground. Each person takes their turn snapping photos of themselves at the roof of the world. I have never climbed Everest. I don't climb mountains. It's not my thing. But let's say I pay someone to carry me to the top of Everest. I pay someone to carry me to the summit where I can plant my flag and take a photo of myself, then they carry me down. Did I climb Mount Everest? No. I could accurately say that I have been to the summit of Mount Everest, but I could not say that I climbed it. Someone else did the work. I simply had the means to reap the reward. Effectively, that's what happens when somebody supposedly creates art with AI. I'm not going to name which AIs I'm referring to because I'm referring to just about all of them that have the ability to create images, books, movies, songs, or any other artistic medium. We have to assume at some point that the human has some kind of input. Something has to be put into the AI to get something out of it. So, let's say that I decide I want to write a novel. If I was to ask an AI to write a novel for me, it would tell me that it can't. I know because, while writing this script, I tried exactly that, and it told me that it was too complex to do it. Fair. But let's assume that the AI will get better. Let's assume that it will eventually be able to write a whole, complete, readable novel on that prompt alone. If I asked that AI to write the novel, then I published that novel. Did I write it? No, clearly not. I did not come up with a single character, location, plotline, or sentence. If I told Paul Tremblay to write a novel, I don't think I could reasonably put my name on the cover. But wait, someone argues. What about the people that are too busy to write their own novel? Busy mothers who work 2 jobs and raise their children. The poor semi-truck driver who hauls for 16 hours per day. The average normal guy who is just too busy surviving. Great question. Let's dissect it. Why are they writing the novel? Either A, they want to engage in the artistry of it, B, they want to make money off of the novel, or C, some combination of A and B. In case A, where they do want to engage in the artistry of it, how could they possibly do that if they outsource the entirety of the creation of the work, if they have no input other than write me a novel? They cannot, because that is fundamentally not engaging with the art. It is, by sheer definition, removing oneself from the art, absolving oneself from the creation. Effectively, it's no different than going to the bookstore and purchasing a book that you had nothing to do with. The labor, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the creation of a piece is itself the artwork. If you did not bleed for the art, then it is not your art. This also rings true for case C. In case B, where they only want to profit, then this is no longer a problem of art philosophy, but socioeconomics. This average person is struggling and needs a bit more on the side to keep some bread on the table. I understand. This average person, I argue, should not be forced to rely on the AI to write their book. I think that too much of their time is being taken. They are being forced to work too hard and being underpaid for what work they do. In a word, they are exploited. If they weren't exploited, they would have the time to create the art without the AI. Advocating for the AI does not help this artistic freedom. If anything, it is complicit in the exploitation of potential and existing artists. This also rings true for case C. But this is all supposing that an AI could functionally write a book off of the prompt, write a novel. AI does not appear able to do this yet. So what about using AI sometimes? So, let's say someone has the time to come up with all of the necessary elements of a novel. The plot, the setting, the themes and motifs, an outline of each scene, a detailed map of the world, a binder full of information on every character. Everything is planned to a T. This person then puts all of that information into an AI and asks it to write the book. Did this person write a book? No, they did not. They did everything they needed to do except actually exercise the act of writing the book. This is like running a marathon, but giving up 10 feet before the finish line. They could have finished the novel, but they chose not to in the most literal way possible. And, as an aside, I'm not certain that this person actually exists. If this person had the time to plan far more than what would ever go into the book, why would they ever let their work fall into someone else's hands? They sound like they're very particular about their work, so I doubt that they would ever let anybody touch their words. But I digress. Let's say I'm wrong, though. Let's say that using AI in this capacity is still reasonably an artistic choice. It should still be avoided for the sake of the quality of the work. In a nutshell, AIs work by scanning quickly through an amazingly large database for patterns. Then, it uses those patterns to approximate an average of what was requested. Average is the key word here. Any artist who takes their art seriously will not settle for average, and investors are less than keen on average returns on their investments. For art or for profit, involving AI seems to be ineffective, if put nicely. So let's take the farthest opposite example, using AI as little as possible while still using it some. Let's say that the writer has done even more of the legwork, having written the first draft. The writer then takes the draft and feeds it into the AI for editing. There are two kinds of editing: copy editing, grammar, syntax, and so forth, and content editing, matters of plot, character, setting, and so on. We will assume that the AI can do both. But now we run into a new issue: originality. AI is trained off of existing content. It cannot create something new. This means that the AI cannot make a suggestion unique to the work, and it will steer towards an editing style that is nothing more than a homogeneous mashup of everything, a stew of average prose and plot that leaves something worse than a bitter taste in the mouth. No taste at all. Sure, the writer has accomplished their task, at the cost of the quality and originality of the novel. For me, that's unacceptable. You have to make that choice for yourself. Having looked at the two extremes, being the almost complete reliance on AI and only a light use of AI, I believe that neither one helps yield true art. I think that it's fair to conclude that almost any amount of AI between these two extremes is unacceptable in the creation of human art, and in fact helps rob it of its status as art. AI is not a tool to help make art. It is a tool to speed up the production of content. Art and content are not the same thing. They never will be. Real art does not need to be rushed. Real art takes as much time as it needs. Will anything that an AI generates ever be art? I'd forgive you for thinking that I might say no. I have railed against AI content for a couple of minutes now, but I do believe that an AI could produce art, just not today and not with what's publicly available. There are many things that go into art, and it would be impossible to name all of them. But the two biggest ones, in my opinion, are creativity and independent observation, both of which are impossible when your scope of knowledge is limited to the dataset upon which you've been trained, and the dataset was curated, and your ability to parse that information was literally created by someone else. An AI cannot think differently until it is told to think differently. No matter how cleverly built it is still just a program run on a machine. But I think that can change. 300 years ago, if I had told someone that humans could fly, I would have been called a liar. But humans can fly. We figured it out. In fact, we found several ways to do it, despite the Trump administration's best efforts. In much the same way, I think that it is possible for AI to become advanced enough that creativity and independent observation will be possible. How? I have no idea, just like people 300 years ago had no idea how flight is possible today. I just think it is unwise to rule it out completely. Now, to return to the argument at hand, would the creation of such an AI and the subsequent use of that AI remove the human artist from the art? Does it change the equation at all? Yes, quite drastically actually, because I would argue that there are two distinct entities at that point. If an AI was genuinely able to show creativity and an ability to make independent observations, then I would say that a form of consciousness would have been legitimately established. This would no longer be a question of art, but of co-authorship. It also opens up a whole can of legal complications. Was the AI compensated? How can you compensate an AI? Did it agree to make the piece of art, or was it forced to? Since it is not human, would it be protected from slavery? I'm not the one that's going to get to answer these questions, and that's fine, because that kind of AI does not exist today. I don't want to speculate on what a theoretical alien intelligence from the future will be like, science fiction withstanding. Using the AI we have available today does nothing to help an artist improve their art, and will limit their ability to create the work to average at best, because all it can do is generate averages. The use of AI shows either laziness or greed in the user, or shows that the artist using it is being exploited and robbed of their time. If an AI ever did create a completely original piece of art, then that indicates that the AI is sentient and is not a mere tool. Such an event would be a cultural turning point unlike any humanity has ever seen. The morality and laws surrounding intellectual property rights will need to be wiped clean and restarted from the ground up, which needs to happen anyway, but that's a different rant. Hiring somebody to carry you to the top of Mount Everest does not mean that you have climbed it. All it means is that you had somebody else do the dirty work while you reaped the benefits. Thank you for listening. My name is Damian Foreman. I write books, I talk about books, I love books and art in general. If you want, you can go over and take a listen to my novel that I wrote and am slowly releasing as an audiobook on YouTube. Otherwise, feel free to also go listen to one of my reviews of various different pieces of literature. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks.